Hi everyone! This video is to show you how to use a pivot table to create a frequency distribution for the homework. So this is an example of a homework problem where you need to create a frequency distribution. It's asking for more information than just a regular frequency distribution. It wants the class, each width, the frequency, the midpoint, the relative frequency, and the cumulative frequency. So we're going to find out how to do all of that in Excel rather than by hand so that the problem goes a lot faster. The first thing we need to be able to do is open the data in Excel. So to do that, we need to select this little tiny blue box right next to the data. It's pretty small, so let me try and zoom in, see how big I can make it without making it disappear. Oh, it disappeared. Okay, so this little blue box right here. If I select the box, then it'll give me this drop-down menu, which says Open in StatCrunch, Copy to Clipboard, or Open in Excel. So what I want is Open in Excel. I'm going to zoom back out so it looks normal. I'm going to select Open in Excel, and that will download the file for me. So I'm in Chrome right now, Google Chrome, and it downloads to the bottom. Depending on the browser that you're using, it might download to a different location, but you should be able to see on the screen where it went. You want to select the file and let it open, and unfortunately it did that on the other screen, so I'll drag it open, or drag it over. Okay, so here's the file, and you can see the data matches. 151, 408, 71, 151, 408, 71. It defaults to the protected view because it doesn't know where you got the file. So to protect you from any viruses, it limits what Excel can do when you open a file. You know where you got this file and you trust it, so you're going to hit Enable Editing. And that'll change it so now that the ribbon appeared. So this part at the top is called the ribbon, and these are tabs that change what the ribbon shows us. Couple of Excel basics. If I want to do math in Excel, I need to hit the equal key, and that will allow me to do math. So if I hit 79 minus 78, nothing will happen. But if I instead equal 79 minus 78, then it'll tell me that's 1. So if I want to do math or use a command, I have to use the equal sign, or it assumes I'm just typing in text. Another rule we should generally follow is to always name what we're using in Excel, because otherwise we'll just have like this messy spreadsheet with a bunch of numbers, and it's really easy to lose track, especially in a more stressful situation like a quiz or exam, of what numbers are what and where your answer is. So out of habit, start now, always name whatever you're using in Excel. So I'm going to start that right here. The data opened right in the top corner, so I need to add a row. To do that, I'm going to hover over 1, and I'm going to right-click and then insert. And another row will appear so that I have room to type in a title. So I will say problem data. And you can see a problem right away is that problem data doesn't fit. So I have a couple of options. I can use this special cursor to drag left and right to make the column wider. If I double-click, then it will default to exactly wide enough to fit the widest thing in that column. So I have my problem data, and I need to create a class width, and I need to create all of the information for my class table, for my frequency distribution. So our book has a tried and true method for creating your class widths, and I'll just go ahead and view an example so we can see what the equation looks like. Class width is about maximum minus minimum divided by the number of classes, which is always given in the problem setup. So you can see for this problem, it's 6. So to be able to use that calculation, I need the maximum and the minimum. So to do that, I have a couple of options. I can highlight the data, and I can sort, smallest to largest. And that will allow me to quickly see the biggest number is the smallest number is 30, and the biggest number is 502. There are other methods. I can use built-in functions like max and min, so equals max. And once this max is highlighted, I can either double-click it, or I can use the tab key to fill it out automatically. And then I highlight the data I want it to find the max of, and press the enter key. Okay, so that gave me 502, and I already confirmed that that was indeed the maximum. So if I want minimum, I can type in min, and then I'll manually type in open parentheses. And now it's waiting for my input, and the input is the data. So you can see the data starts in A2 and goes to A30. And over here I see A2 through A30. matching my data, it also color codes. So this blue isn't happenstance. This blue is here to match this blue. So if for some reason I needed to add more data, I could use a plus sign and select elsewhere. And you can see the blue matches the blue highlight and the red matches the red highlight. I don't need that, so I'm going to delete it. And then I can close the parentheses and hit enter, but it's not necessary. If I just hit enter without that last parenthesis, it'll still work. Now the calculation I need is the big one minus the little one. So equal sign, I'm going to open parenthesis because I want it to subtract and then divide. So the big one minus the little one. And you can see the color coding happen. So I'm subtracting the blue number from the red number. Close parentheses, divide by 6, which is the number of classes the problem requested right here. So I'll go back and hit enter, and it gives me 78.667, and it tells me in the problem that I should round my classes. So I'm going to round that to 79. And again, I'm going to go back and label these. This is the max. This is the min. This is the class calculation. Cal. I'll just put calc because my fingers aren't working right now. And then I will put, this is the okay, and then again I can drag this out so that everything fits. And now this is the important part I want, so I'll go ahead and highlight it so I don't lose track of it. Now I'm going to use what's called a pivot table to help me organize this data into a table similar to this. So what I'll do is highlight both the title and all of the data and no empty cells. So I have the title to the data, A1 through A30. I'm going to insert at the top of the page, at the top of the ribbon. Select insert and the ribbon changes, and now I'll have pivot table available to me. So I'll select pivot table. This is asking me where I want to put the pivot table and the special requirements for the pivot table, and for our class there are none, so it doesn't matter. So just go ahead and hit OK. And a pivot table opens, and you can see now the ribbon has even more stuff in it, and I've got this pivot table section. So now what I'm going to do is drag the problem data. I know that this table will have lots of rows, right, for my classes. We'll go across in rows, and those rows need frequency counts. So I'm going to drag my data to rows, and now I can see I have a row for every single piece of data, which is useless. That doesn't group it the way I want it to for the frequency table. I can fix that. If I right click on any one of these rows, I get this menu to pop up, and I'm going to group. So one more time, right click and then group. I'll select group, and this little menu will pop out. And you see it starts at the minimum and ends at the maximum automatically, and it defaults to 100. But on the last tab that we had open, we calculated the class width to be 79. So I'll replace 100 with 79. I'll select OK, and it will create all of my class widths. So if I select the box again inside here, it'll open up the pivot table fields. And now I need all of the counts. So I'm going to drag this over here to the values section, and that's the summation sign. So this one, because I do this often, defaulted to count, but oftentimes it defaults to sum instead, and you'll have to fix that. So if you don't see count here and you don't see count here, you likely see sum, or maybe even average. And you can change that. You just hit the drop down arrow right here and select value field settings. And then you can select which one of these you want. So you can have it give you the sum or the average or the product. The count numbers, there's a bunch of stuff in here that you can choose from, but all we need is count. So it's right here. Select count. It changes the name to count of problem data. And now you can hit OK, and you should see counts here just like me. So now I have the classes, the lower and upper, and I have the frequency, and now I need the midpoint. Midpoint's a little more involved because you have to take the average of the classes, you have to add them up and divide by 2. There's no easy way to do that because unfortunately these aren't registering as 2 different numbers, so I can't just select them and add them and divide. So I'll have to manually type them in. So 30 and then 109. The good thing is they're always separated by 79, so the easiest way to accomplish this is to only do 2, and then Excel will recognize the pattern. So what I do is click on the first and drag down to the second with this big fat white cursor, And then go to the corner with the small skinny black cursor and drag down. And you can see it starts to repeat the pattern. So I can go all the way down to 425 and it matches the lower bound right across. I'll go ahead and name that as lower class bound. LB or LCB for lower class bound. Okay, and I'm going to create upper class bound. Right here, the same method. I'll type in 108 and I'll type in 187. Oops. And then I'll highlight them both together with the big white cursor, go to the corner with the skinny black cursor, and drag down. Now I can also grab the counts, so I can call this frequency, so that I have everything together. And I'll just highlight these, right click and copy. And then I want to paste them over here, but I need to be careful how I paste them. So right click and then paste options. I want values, so that it only keeps the numbers and not any kind of math, because you never know what could follow you around in Excel, some sort of calculation that keeps getting messed up as you move forward. So you want to make sure that you're just keeping the values and nothing else. Okay, so now I have my frequency counts. The next thing I needed was midpoint. And midpoint is just the average of these two numbers. So I can use average to do that. So midpoint equals average. Average will just sum up the numbers and divide by the number of numbers you added. So here, if I select these two, it'll add these two numbers, and then it will divide by 2, which is exactly what the midpoint does, right? The average is right in the middle, or it should be. We'll get into different measurements of center in a few chapters. Okay, so that gave me 69, and I can kind of eyeball that seems reasonable for the center of those two numbers. You know, if I got like 30 or if I got 90, I might be worried. So I'll drag that down with the skinny black cursor, and now I have the midpoint for all of these. And it's giving me an error because it thinks that I forgot some cells, so you can just ignore that for now. The next thing I want is the relative frequency. So that would be each one of these numbers divided by the total. And luckily my pivot table also gave me a total. So I'll put relative frequency equal sign, select the number that I want to be divided, and then divide by the total, which is right here, 29. So relative frequency is essentially the percentage of the number out of the total. So 6 is about 20% of 29. Okay, so double checking over here, it says that it wants me to round class limits to the nearest whole number and round all other values to the nearest thousandth as needed. Excel will round for me, which comes in really handy when I'm trying to type in these numbers and it's easy to miss something or type it in wrong. So I'll go ahead and grab all of these numbers, and I'm going to use these two buttons at the top to add digits if I need to, or subtract if I want fewer. So I only want to the thousandth, so I'm going to show 3 digits. And you can see if I show, it rounds this 6, 9 to 7 like I should, or this 2, 4 to 2. So now I have the nice rounded solution to be able to type into my math lab. The next thing I want is a cumulative frequency, which means that I add them up as I go. So the first number will always be the same, the frequency count, and the cumulative frequency will always be the same because there's nothing to add it to. So this will just be 6 because there is nothing above 6 to add. The next one should be 8. It should be 2 plus 6. And then the next one would be 13, 5 plus 2 plus 6. The easy way to have Excel do this for you is to hit the equal sign. I always want to take the number across from where I'm at and add it to the number above. So plus sign and add. I'm taking the blue number and adding the number above, which is the red number. I'll hit enter and then I'll drag that down. There's a couple of ways I can check this. I should always get the total at the bottom because I've added everything before it. So to find 29, I had to add 7 and all the numbers before it. So that should just be the total amount of frequency that I have. And then I can check, like here, by double clicking, it'll show me the calculation it's doing. So I can double check that it's adding the same row to the number above. Okay, so that's given me everything I need to be able to fill out this entire thing. So one more tip is that if you're on a Windows computer, you can drag this to the side of the screen and it'll pop up and let you select the other thing to show on the other side of the screen. That'll make it a lot easier to type these in. 30 to 108 and 6 the midpoint should be 69, and the relative frequency should be 0.207, and the cumulative frequency should be 6. And check answer. Yay! So now I just have to do that for each one of these rows. Okay, I hope you find that video helpful. I hope it helps you move through some of these homework problems a little faster. We're not trying to inundate you with a bunch of calculations. We're trying to show you how to read these and how technology can help us create these kind of summaries of data quickly.